All right, so let's talk about Moses Itauma versus Dillian Whyte. This fight has received a lot more hype, actually, for the quality of the matchup between the two than just hype around Moses Itauma. Now, that much is obvious given that Dillian Whyte is the strongest opponent Itauma has faced, but I think it really speaks to not just the quality of Dillian Whyte as a fighter, not just the quality of the fighters that he's faced throughout his career as a really essential fighter in the heavyweight division and the British heavyweight division especially, but also to how untested Moses Itauma actually is. Now, Itauma's only fought 25 professional rounds in his career before this fight. He's dominated pretty much wire to wire and has never really been tested, but it is a pretty low amount of experience compared to Dillian Whyte, and Dillian Whyte is also by far the most durable and tough fighter that Itauma has ever faced. Now, Itauma is an extremely impressive prospect, and in the popular conscience, he seems to be as much of a shoo-in for greatness as should be possible in modern heavyweight boxing. To me, he's even a clear step above AJ, where AJ was at this point in his career. Plus, he's a southpaw. He has an arsenal well beyond his years, fantastic, fast, efficient footwork, and just superior finishing instincts. He's going to hit you when you can't hit him. He's going to be faster than you are, probably. He gets constantly compared to a welterweight and a lightweight when discussing hand speed and footwork, and that's not really an entirely incorrect observation. He's as fast as at least most middleweights are. He's just lightning quick for somebody his size. He's 6'4", I believe. But it's not just Dillian Whyte's well-proven ability to withstand punishment that would knock out lesser men or his extensive track record against the very best in the division and his ability to get up from knockdowns against those fighters. It's also his high ring IQ and his big left hook that a lot of people think could be a southpaw killer and really cause trouble for Moses Itauma, hit Moses Itauma in a way that he's never been hit before. It's almost too easy to imagine a super aggressive young fighter like Itauma who is going to go after Dillian Whyte the same way that he's gone after everyone he's ever fought. He's going to try to get an early finish. It's very easy to see Itauma going in and getting caught with a big left hand from Dillian Whyte. That could absolutely happen, and what a sudden stop that would be to the Moses Itauma hype train. And it's worth mentioning that in addition to that risk of Itauma getting knocked down by a big counter punch, by a big counter left hook, he's also going to have to deal with the fact that I don't think Whyte's overall number of fights is as big of an advantage as many people think it is. I think the bigger advantage is that Whyte has gone deeper into fights more often. He just has way more experience in the later rounds, and if he can get Itauma into the later rounds, I think Dillian Whyte could have an advantage. And I think that's a big part of the reason why we've seen this big physique change from Dillian Whyte in this training camp. He knows that his best chance is to actually outrun Itauma, to outmove Itauma, and to somehow stay with the much younger man through all 12 rounds. The problem is I don't think that's going to happen. I just think Itauma's too good. I think Itauma's too fast, and I think Dillian Whyte hasn't been facing a high enough level of opposition relative to Itauma recently, at least since his losses to Fury and his win against Alex Povetkin a few years ago. I think if Itauma can't get a finish early on from knocking Whyte out cold by just stalking him, hunting him down, he'll just get it on the feet. He can just TKO him against the ropes. He has that much speed and combination punching power. He really can just combo off on somebody like those old Muhammad Ali knockouts where Ali would get 20 punches off and the ref would just step in between them and the other guy wouldn't even go to the ground. And if Itauma doesn't do that, if he does knock him down and Whyte gets back up as he has so often in his career, he's still going to be in there against the southpaw with a blinding speed advantage. And at any point in a fight, no matter how dramatic things get, you can never forget about Itauma's lead right hand. It's always probing, it's always moving, it's always touching the body, draining that stamina from his opposition. Itauma absolutely has a game plan and a fighting style that will serve him through a 12-round fight. So to me, stamina really shouldn't be too big of a problem, especially if he does his job early on, which I think he will. Plenty of young prospects have been felled by veterans like Dillian Whyte throughout the history of boxing, but very few young prospects have ever possessed a fighting style as fleshed out and as identifiable as Itauma's. And for Dillian Whyte, it's one thing to know what's coming. Actually being able to handle it is another thing entirely when it's right there in front of you. Dillian's last fight was against a fighter named Ebenezer Teta, who's the world's 203rd ranked heavyweight hailing from Ghana. According to EMGM Sports, which is one of the best daily boxing news channels on YouTube, shout out to him, Teta is fighting under an assumed age of 37, but is widely known in African boxing to actually be somewhere in his mid-40s. And Dillian Whyte's previous opponents following his knockout of Povetkin in 2021 have been no spring chickens either. He's fighting guys like Tete and Christian Hammer in order to keep himself fresh, keep his offense fresh for that next big opportunity at the top level that, in my opinion, he really earned with that majority decision win over Jermaine Franklin. And the reason I say keeping that offensive skill set up is because that really is the hallmark of Dillian Whyte's game. He really is an offensive fighter first. And if Whyte manages to knock out Itauma in this fight, the most important thing we're going to learn isn't actually going to be about Dillian Whyte or his offensive skill set, although it will probably be Whyte's most impressive knockout of his career. We'll learn a lot more about Moses Itauma's defense or a previously unforeseen lack thereof. He's never really been properly tested in the professional ring yet because he hasn't fought anybody at a level capable of challenging him. But part of the reason why this fight was made, yeah, this fight's interesting because of Whyte's offensive arsenal. But ultimately, we've seen Dillian Whyte's defense tested by the best in the world, and every time he's had his defense tested by the best in the world, his defense has failed him. It's very blatant what level he's at in the heavyweight division. He isn't as good as Fury. He isn't as good as Joshua. He's on the same level as a guy like Alex Povetkin. So he's a really good measuring stick for a young prospect like Itauma who has shown the skill set that he has. And make no mistake, Whyte will definitely hit Itauma harder than he's been hit before. And this fight has been made to see if Itauma's chin and defense can hold up to the pressure of a top professional heavyweight offensive arsenal, especially in the form of Dillian Whyte. So ultimately, my pick for this fight is Itauma by mid-round TKO. But I'm sorry, I have to hesitate, stop, and question the speed of this move up for Itauma. In my opinion, all moving him up the ranks this fast does is get us closer and closer to his first loss, especially at such a young age. I have no problem with the step up a couple years on from now, or even a year on from now. I mean, if the idea is to have an Usyk fight, Usyk is 38. You ideally want that fight before Usyk is 40. Itauma can be 21, 22. That's fine. I feel like they want that fight next, and that worries me. I feel like just the prospect of that big heavyweight fight, that big undefeated heavyweight clash, has Turki Al-Sheikh seeing dollar signs. And it's kind of blinding the common sense when it comes to protecting Moses Itauma. And, you know, so many awful things have been done in the history of boxing in the name of protecting a fighter. So many great fights that could have been have not been in the name of protecting a fighter. So I understand that. I understand wanting to get to the Usyk matchup. And I understand the whole Southpaw versus Southpaw thing. I understand the Usyk versus British thing. I get that there's so many headlines, one generation versus the next. But what's it going to be? It's going to be a 13 or 14-0 Moses Itauma against Usyk. Now just think about that from the perspective of Moses Itauma's career. So in all likelihood, he's going to take a lot of damage or even lose to one of the best heavyweights of all time in Alexander Usyk, this young and this early into his career. But even if Itauma wins, actually, especially if he wins and all the belts come to him and he becomes undisputed at the age of 21 or 22, it's going to be a whole career of him facing nothing but the top heavyweights in the world, starting at an age under 22 or 23 with a win total well under 20. If Itauma actually manages to get to, say, 35-0, 40-0 from that position, he'd probably be the greatest heavyweight of all time by a pretty incomprehensible margin, and I just don't see that happening. I don't see that as possible. I don't even think he'd be able to get to 20-0 from that point, to be honest with you, if he was 14-0 and undisputed. Now, I have no idea who's going to beat him, but just because an exciting young southpaw comes out of a boxing hotbed like England and looks as impressive as Itauma, that doesn't mean that some other great heavyweight can't emerge from somewhere else and knock him off. That's the nature of the game. That's the nature of boxing. And in the end, I think that this sort of a little premature jumpstart from Itauma means that his legacy is ultimately going to be determined by what the attitude of boxing fans towards losing is, which is, of course, becoming, more palatable every year, especially in the heavyweight division. Losses have always been a little more forgivable. And it's unfortunate to me that this pretty much means that at some point within the next, I would say, 5 years, Itauma is probably going to join the ranks of the defeated as a fighter who has been rushed to that champion status so fast. I'm saying if he beats Usyk here. But in my honest opinion, if that fight happens when Usyk is still under 40, that's going to be Itauma's first loss. So this whole thing of what will happen when Itauma becomes undisputed at a young age, to me, it's kind of a pointless argument because I don't think that's going to happen. We'll cross that bridge when we come to it. But just to summarize, I think even if Itauma beats Usyk, he'll become a champion so young that he'll just lose to someone else, unfortunately. I think the history of the sport backs that up pretty well. And don't even get me started on if you want to talk about an experience gap in this fight between Dillian Whyte and Itauma, think about the experience gap. Even after, say he knocks out Whyte in round 4, which, let's say that's my prediction. Itauma by round 4 TKO. Let's say he knocks him down once in the second or the third round, gets a big knockdown, and then finishes him along the ropes in the 4th or 5th round. That's my final prediction here. But if you want to talk about the experience gap between Itauma and Dillian Whyte, hold up, what's the experience gap between Itauma and Usyk? I mean, if people have this big of a problem with Itauma fighting Dillian Whyte not having that much experience relative to Whyte, those people are probably going to be talking about the Usyk fight like Itauma's going to get his head cut off, right? But at the same time, there's another side of that coin. But if Itauma beats Whyte, because of Whyte's previous losses, it'll be incredibly easy to place him alongside Tyson Fury and Anthony Joshua, who are 2 of Whyte's 3 losses, Alex Povetkin as well. There will be no doubt in anyone's mind that Itauma is on that level, and that clash between him and Usyk as 2 undefeated fighters will kind of make itself. I think a lot of people will want to see Itauma get more wins, but the money is the money. The markets are the markets. England is the biggest boxing market in the world. They've got those Wembley sellouts to drive revenue, man. They want to make those fights. I hope at least they give us Usyk versus Parker or Usyk versus Caballel like I want first. But I just think the money in this Usyk-Itauma fight may be too much for Turki Al-Sheikh to turn down. So I think Itauma wins this fight this weekend against Dillian Whyte, probably in pretty dominant and impressive fashion too, but I'm worried for Itauma's future. I am, at least when it comes to staying undefeated, or honestly staying undefeated or anything close to it, man. The heavyweight division is like no other division in boxing. It's always packed. It's always crowded. It's always full of hungry contenders. And for Itauma to really stay on top, for anyone to stay on top for that long is a very, very rare and special thing. And who knows? We may be seeing the beginnings of a very rare and special thing. But For now, I definitely still have my doubts, but this is going to be a good one. Like and subscribe if you like that breakdown. Let me know what you guys think about Itauma versus Whyte, and I will see you on the next one. Stay tuned for more boxing and combat sports content. I'll have a preview of UFC 319 up as well very soon.